Terminator Dark Fate is directed by Tim Miller and is, I don't know what, the 6th Terminator movie of this franchise. And even though it is the 4th movie after Terminator 2 Judgment Day, this is the official sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day after 28 years. And in this movie there is a new Terminator, the Rev 9, played by Gabriel Luna, who's brought back to our modern day to try to kill this girl Danny, played by Natalia Reyes. But Danny is also guarded by Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis, who is an enhanced human from this future that the Rev 9 is from. So while Grace is trying to save Danny, the two girls are eventually joined by Linda Hamilton, who's playing Sarah Connor once again, and eventually Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's reprising one of his most famous roles. And it's no secret that Arnold Schwarzenegger's in this movie. He's in the trailer, he's on every single poster, it's absolutely not a spoiler. And this is the new movie in the franchise after a string of not too many great movies after Genesis, and especially Salvation, which I didn't like. I haven't seen the 3rd Terminator movie, but this is said to be a return to form to the franchise coming after Terminator and Terminator 2, which I personally did like back in the day when I first saw them, but I haven't seen those movies since. But from memory, I did like those, and will I say this is a return to form for the franchise? I'm not too sure because I'm not a big fan of this franchise, but I'll say that I did actually like Terminator Dark Fate, especially coming off of the mediocre sequels that we've had recently. One thing that I will say Dark Fate did really well was its action, that I think this is mainly due to Tim Miller, who did direct Deadpool from a couple years ago, so he's had experience with action. I do think that he brought a lot of those elements from Deadpool into this movie because the action scenes probably for me are one of the highlights. There are 3 big action set pieces in this movie, 1 per each act, and while I do think that the action set pieces for me dwindled over the course of the movie, they are still very energetic, very well shot too, and I thought the action was very well utilized. There's not that much shaky cam, there's not that much quick editing. While there is more quick editing in the last action scene than there is in the first one, the action in this movie is very well shot and you can see everything that's happening. And also just the visual effects of the action scenes are really good. I absolutely love the Terminators themselves. The visuals on them are outstanding, and there are actually certain times where I couldn't tell, is that a visual effect or is that an actual Terminator animatronic? I thought that the robotic visual elements of this movie were really beautiful. I will say though that some of the human visual effects, especially if someone is thrown or has to jump from one place to another, are a bit awkward because I know what a human looks like and I know that's not what a human should look like. But besides that, I really like the action scenes, especially the first one, which is just a straight up manhunt that happens in the first act of the movie. I would say my favorite part of this movie was probably the first 40 minutes when we are so introduced to a set of mystery with all these new characters, and it is a more manhunt type movie with this Rev 9 trying to chase this Danny girl. But another element of this movie that I really did like were the characters. I haven't had characters that I've liked in a movie since T2. Obviously Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back from this movie was a very risky move because bringing back veteran actors reprising their famous roles could either go very well or very poorly, and for me, I personally thought that the two of them really brought back their famous characters and it didn't seem like they were just half-assing their roles. It felt like they cared. Yes, you could say that Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance felt a bit robotic, but that's the point because he's a robot. What are you trying to complain about? But I do really like what they did with those old characters and the arcs that they had within this movie and how they changed by the end of the movie. And I do really like what they did with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. I do think it added something new and a lot of humor to that role, and while I understand some hardcore Terminator fans may be disappointed or annoyed by the direction that certain characters won this movie, I, as a not huge Terminator fan, didn't really care for the changes because I thought that they worked in this movie very well. But easily the standout in this movie for me was Mackenzie Davis as Grace. Not only did I thought that she had a tremendous performance, but her character in this movie I really liked. I liked her motivation, I liked her own personal arc, and a lot of heart that Davis brought to this character. And when a certain character choice is made with this character by the end of the movie, it easily could have been really flat for this character, or it could have worked, and for me personally it worked, and I was surprised where I actually cared for this character, and it just shows that I actually cared about this character. And I feel like I'm so surprised that I care so much about Mackenzie Davis's character. It's probably because I didn't really care about the main girl Danny that much, which is a little bit annoying because she is the main human character in this movie, someone that we should really root for, but sadly I don't feel like there was that much to this character, and honestly I didn't care for her. My main issue with the character of Danny is that she is a very passive character in this movie where all the actions are happening to her, and by the end of the movie when her character arc is complete and she actually does something for herself, it didn't really feel warranted. It didn't move me, unlike Mackenzie Davis's character of Grace, which I really did like. But no, this movie obviously isn't perfect. I do think that the movie does have a lot of narrative issues that I do think goes back to its script. Certain elements with the movie script, especially its dialogue, I feel like wasn't that strong, especially when you just have some dialogue that either just sounds stupid or isn't delivered well enough from actors that aren't strong enough to deliver not great dialogue. But there is a lot of exposition or even explaining in this movie that is dealt with monologues, explaining why certain people do this, and it was quite obvious when someone started speaking, you know, oh, this is the explaining portion of the movie. But even then, there are a lot of flashbacks or flash forwards, I guess, in the movie that I feel like took a lot of the momentum out of the story for me, because I really liked what we were experiencing in the main timeline of this movie, and I didn't need to be told everything everything that happened in the future of the movie, especially because one of my other big flaws in the movie is how it deals with the future, because Skynet is a big part of the future, and what they do in the future with this company, I feel like could have definitely improved from making more intimidating, because while there is a bad thing that happens into the future for humanity, it feels kind of weird and not really well explained. So while there is this big evil presence there, you don't feel anything, and because that, I wasn't really feeling threatened by the future, when in previous movies with Skynet, you know there is this bad thing and you can easily tell what Skynet is doing, but because of time travel and all these different elements happening in the movie, you just didn't really know what that true baddie was awaiting for us in the future. Another issue I have with the villain of the movie, the Rev 9, while there's nothing bad with the performance of the movie, I do feel like while this Terminator is an unstoppable force, they made the Terminator a bit too much of an unstoppable force, where there wasn't really any tension when you think, oh, they're gonna try to kill him now. No, because you know there's nothing stopping this Terminator, so it's just kind of annoying seeing the characters think that they're gonna kill the Terminator when you know there's nothing that they can really do to stop this Terminator. But even just certain narrative choices in the movie, I feel like there's some certain characters that are randomly brought into this movie and quickly just taken out of the movie that I feel like overall they didn't need to be in this movie. And in the second act, especially when certain characters have to go from point A to point B, it does drag a little bit, because during this moment there are no big action scenes, and it does drag the movie on for very little, but not tremendously, where it actually bored me in this movie, because I do feel like for the most part the movie was very well paced. But in the end, I'm actually very surprised about Terminator Dark Fate. Coming off of two very mediocre sequels, I'm glad to say that I really did enjoy Terminator Dark Fate. I feel like it has very high octane action scenes that are very energetic. There's a lot of enjoyable humor in this movie and characters I actually cared about. There are certain issues I have with dialogue, or just how certain characters are played out in the movie, but overall I was pleasantly surprised by Terminator Dark Fate, and so I can say that Terminator Dark Fate is a good movie. I was also sent a bag of Terminator sponsored Ruffles, and I was very confused of why I was sent this until I saw the movie. And Ruffles plays a part in the movie in a very funny product placement. Not because it's good funny, just because it's so obvious, random, and a little bit stupid, but oh god, I love weird product placement. So that's Terminator Dark Fate. What do you guys think? Have you seen the movie? Have you not seen the movie? Whatever you think, put the comments below and maybe I'll read it, maybe I won't. Thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't, you can click my last video right over here, and you can click my upcoming video right over here. Thank you as always for watching, and hope to see you next time.